Let's do some speaking practice. I'm Melinda, and this is the third in a series of videos giving you practice with the first part of the IELTS speaking test. I'm going to ask you some questions. You need to listen and answer. The first few questions, the warm-up questions, are always the same. When we get to groups 1 and 2, listen to the questions and then pause the video while you say your answer aloud. Do this for each question. You should also record your answer to listen back later. A smartphone makes a good recording device. So, are you ready? Could you show me some identification, please? Could you tell me your full name? What should I call you? Thank you. Do you work or study? Let's talk about the weather. What's the weather like in your country? Does the weather affect your mood? How do rainy days make you feel? What's your favourite season of the year? What do you like to do when it's hot? How many seasons does your country have? Now let's talk about school. What kind of school did you go to as a child? What was your favourite subject? Who was your favourite teacher? So these are the questions that you heard. The first 4 questions are always the same, or at least very similar. So the first 3 require just a very short answer. The 4th one, I suggest you give a little bit more information. So if you work, where do you work? How long have you worked there? If you study, where do you study and what do you study? The group 1 questions were about the weather. So what's the weather like in your country? So is it tropical? Is it a cold climate? Is the summer very hot, the winter very cold? Is it the same all year round? So you can choose from any of these ideas, and you need to give a little bit more information. So you can say cold, but if you say cold, give a little bit more information. It's cold, particularly in winter when it gets to 20 degrees below. The summer is often 10 to 15 degrees. So something like that. Give a little bit more information. 3 to 4 sentences is good. Does the weather affect your mood? Now this is a yes/no question. So you can say yes or no, but then give a little bit more information. How do rainy days make you feel? So maybe you don't really care if it's rainy or sunny. Maybe rainy days make you feel a bit depressed. Maybe you love the rain. Maybe you like to sit outside under cover and just watch the rain. So many possible answers here. There's not a correct answer. You just need to be talking generally about this question. So your favourite season of the year? Is it summer or winter? Or maybe your country really only has one season. So it could be an opportunity to tell the examiner a little bit about your own country. And what do you like to do when it's hot? So there are a range of things you can talk about here. You like to sit inside with the air conditioning. You like to go swimming. Probably you don't like dancing or doing something active. That's okay. You can talk about things you don't like to do as well as things that you do like to do. And how many seasons does your country have? Maybe it has 4, maybe it has 2, or maybe just 1. So you can tell the examiner a little bit about your country. Now with these questions, you need to give a little bit more information, but not for every question necessarily. So you can give 2 or 3 sentences on each question. Maybe some could just be 1 sentence, while others are 4 or 5. You can vary it a little bit. Group 2 questions were about school. So what kind of school did you go to? So was it co-ed, meaning boys and girls, or was it single sex? Maybe just a boys' school or just a girls' school. Maybe it was in the countryside, maybe it was in the city, maybe it was a big school or a small school. Maybe it was a private school, maybe a government school. So what was your favourite subject? So you can talk about your favourite subject, you can talk about 2 or 3 subjects that you really enjoyed, you can talk about subjects you didn't enjoy. Who was your favourite teacher? So here you'd think back through your school years, teacher that you really liked, and you talk about why you liked this teacher. So the first group of questions are inviting you to talk about the present, something that's happening now. You can take it back to the past if you want to. The second group of questions is inviting you to think about the past. And again, you can talk about the past, you can bring it to the present if you want to do that. So you need to be aware of the tense that the question is inviting you to use. Some things you need to note: that the questions in part 1 are all going to be familiar and relatively easy. And what you need to do is think about the tense of the questions. The examiner is listening to what you say, and in particular they are thinking about your use of grammar, your use of vocabulary, and your use of the tenses. So these are fairly easy questions. It's an opportunity for you to demonstrate your ability with grammar or vocabulary. Some of the questions you can give a short answer of just 1 sentence, and other questions need to be a little bit longer. So this part of the test will last for 4 to 5 minutes. In this particular test there were the 4 usual questions, very short answers, and then there were 9 additional questions across groups 1 and 2. If you spent 30 seconds on average with group 1 and 2 questions, then the timing is about right. And what that means is if you have short answers to some questions, some of your answers need to be a little bit longer. Now there are no right or wrong answers. It doesn't really matter what you say. The examiner is not going to judge you. It's not a factor in the test. And the only thing that you need to think about is that your answers must be relevant. So you need to understand the question and give an appropriate answer. So if it's asking you about the past, you should be talking largely about the past. Now in this test, I may have asked you some questions that you had already answered, and that was because I can't hear your answers. In the real test, the examiner is unlikely to do that. They can skip questions, they can add in extra questions if they need to. So they're going to be looking at the clock and making sure that this section is 4 to 5 minutes long. Now an important thing to note is that you shouldn't say, "as I told you before," or "as I said before." The tone is wrong. It's the kind of thing that a teacher might say to the students, a parent might say to their children. It's kind of something that comes from a superior position to an inferior position, and you don't want to make yourself superior to the examiner. So just avoid that structure. So in summary, this section of the test, familiar questions, relatively easy. You should be thinking about the tenses. You can give short answers sometimes, but some answers need to be a little bit extended. Okay, and that's it for this video. For more practice, for tips and for help with IELTS, please check my blog at ieltswithmelinda.com, or you can join my Facebook page, IELTS with Melinda.